In India, one woman is raped every 15 minutes. That makes it 33,000 women who report rape each year. That also means 278,886 rapes in the last 10 years. But what about conviction rates in these cases? Less than 25%. That means only 1 in every 4 cases that justice gets done.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the News Unlocked, the show that takes you behind the headlines to the real stories that matter. The gruesome rape and murder of a 19-year-old girl in Uttar Pradesh's Hathras has brought up the question of justice and of women's safety once again, and also, of course, of caste atrocities. These cases involving rape were supposed to be settled by fast-track courts, courts that were set up to dispense speedy justice. Since the 2012 Nirbhaya case, the focus on rape cases has at times been intense. But over the years, have fast-track courts been enough? Have the conviction rates for rape cases really changed at all? In a moment, I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top lawyers. But before that, let's take a look at this report for more details.
The logic of a fast-track court was to dispense speedy justice and to cut through the huge clutter of pending cases. Fast-track courts have been in existence for 2 decades now. The first one was set up in the year 2000. But have fast-track courts lived up to their objective? In 2019, the central government had proposed setting up of some 1,000 fast-track courts. This came after the Supreme Court mandated that there should be a fast-track court in every district with more than 100 cases pending under the POCSO Act. As of now, there are 664 fast-track courts that are operational in the country. The government says it is going to set up 1,023 fast-track courts for sexual offences against women and children.
All cases of rape, murder should be tried in fast track, and when we are talking of fast track, we are telling them to adhere to the law that is already there. 90 days, maximum 6 months, and not over that.
According to the National Crime Records Bureau, around 1.66 lakh rape and POCSO cases are still pending for trial. And even the fast-track courts that are functional haven't yielded the desired results. According to a January 2020 report released by the NCRB, trials in fast-track courts, which were supposed to give judgments to heinous crimes like rape, are taking a longer time than regular courts. The data shows that of more than 28,000 trials completed in India's fast-track courts in 2018, only 22% took less than a year to complete. Also, about 42% of these trials took the fast-track courts 3 years to complete, while 17% took more than 5 years to complete.
Problem is, of course, a problem of investigation, of course, a problem of rehabilitation, of course, a problem of collection of evidence, of course, a problem of robust prosecution. But notwithstanding all of that, the problem essentially is, why are these incidents happening with such regularity all across the country?
What's even more worrying is the fact that while conviction rates in rape cases has increased marginally in the recent years, the charge sheeting rate in rape cases has actually come down to 81.6% in 2019. It used to be 95.4% in 2013. And that is where the problem begins.
And joining me now is Indira Jaising, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court, someone who has spent a lifetime fighting these issues. I'll also be joined in just a moment by Pinky Anand, another Senior Advocate and Additional Solicitor General. Both of you, in fact, have been that. Thank you very much for joining me first, Indira Jaising. Let's look at this issue of conviction, since we are now focusing on Hathras in terms of whether justice will be done in such cases. When I look at the conviction rate, in 2019, it's as low as 27.8% as per NCRB figures. So almost only 1 in every 4 cases results in a conviction. Why do you think conviction rates are so low despite having fast-track courts?
Yeah. So, Rajdeep, first, do we really have fast-track courts? Yes, in terms of numbers, there are a little over 600 fast-track courts in the country. They are fast-track courts only in name. The procedures that they adopt have not changed. They remain the same as in any other court. Secondly, there are no day-to-day hearings for rape trials. Thirdly, the same judges who handle, let's say, theft, dacoity, robbery, also handle rape cases. And I'm given to understand that the only thing you do when you call it a fast-track court is to dedicate the 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. slot to these cases. Otherwise, nothing changes. It's the same court. They don't even have their own separate premises. They don't have their own separate experts. They don't have a special training to handle rape cases, least of all the sensitivity. So in what sense of the word can you call them fast-track courts, except that you have a label to them saying this is a fast-track court?
You know, because the whole notion of a fast-track court, Indira Jaising, was based on the premise of ensuring speedy justice. That these were cases that simply could not linger on given the trauma that a girl has already gone through. But when I look at the numbers, of more than 28,000 trials completed in India's fast-track courts in 2018, only 22% took less than a year to complete. 42% of these trials took more than 3 years to complete. 17% of these trials took more than 5 years to complete. So even in the Nirbhaya case, it took about 7 years. And God forbid, as we look at this case of the Hathras victim, she's dead. It'll take 7-8 years on an average is the fear. Do you believe, therefore, that somewhere you need to speeden up the process of either a collection of evidence, the actual trial, and then the process of any appeals that any individual will have in the court system?
Rajdeep, I want to answer your question by referring you to what I consider to be one of the saddest cases of my entire career. It was a case of a 10-year-old who was raped by her uncle and became pregnant. Now, this case reached the Supreme Court of India, and by the time it reached, there was a demand for an abortion of the child. But by the time the demand reached the Supreme Court of India, the pregnancy was far gone. And the Supreme Court appointed a medical board which came to the conclusion that an abortion would not be in her best interest and it would jeopardize her very life. Now, this case came before Justice Lokur. I'm really sorry to have to tell you that the girl had to give birth. And the press statement that was issued broke my heart. It says both children are doing well. What does it mean? The woman who gave birth was a child and she gave birth to a child. Now, this is when I told Justice Lokur, how long will it take for this man to be convicted? And what I pointed out to him was that the maximum time is taken in rape trials by proving or disproving consent. When it comes to a minor, where is the question of proving or disproving consent? So why should this case take long? All I need to do, all the young girl needs to do, is to identify the accused and say, this is the man who committed the rape. I must say that Justice Lokur immediately switched on to the issue. And between the court and me as amicus in that case, we were able to make sure that the conviction happened in a matter of weeks, because there is little or no evidence to be produced in cases like this. And Rajdeep, from your figures, let me tell you that most of them are not cases of stranger rape. They are cases of rape happening within the family. That brings up a host of other issues, which we will discuss some other time.
You know, I'll come to it because I want to focus in a moment on the Hathras case itself. Because look at the way that one of the issues that has always been raised is that of evidence collection, of contrary opinion, of contrary evidence that is put before the court in a way to completely destroy the girl's claims and the manner in which the entire prosecution and defense operate in such cases. somehow or the other, how do you discredit a woman and any witness in such a case if there is one? And just listen in to how the Hathras case has played out. What the police is saying, what the medical authorities are saying, and what the girl said in the dying declaration, and then I'll get you to respond to this. Let's just play out that as to how this case is now progressing, even in the few days since the allegation came to light that this was a gang rape. Just listen in to how it's played out.
जो विधि विज्ञान प्रयोगशाला की रिपोर्ट भी अब प्राप्त हो गई है, जिसमें यह स्पष्ट रूप से बताया गया है कि जो सैंपल एकत्रित किए गए थे उसमें किसी तरह का स्पर्म और शुक्राणु नहीं पाया गया है। इससे स्पष्ट होता है कि कुछ लोगों के द्वारा प्रदेश में गलत तरीके से जातीय तनाव पैदा करने के लिए इस तरह की चीज़ें कराई गईं और पुलिस ने शुरू से इसमें त्वरित कार्रवाई और तत्समय कार्रवाई की है।
कब एक बार और रेप करने की कोशिश की थी पहले? अच्छा, इससे पहले रेप करने की कोशिश की थी लेकिन क्या हुआ? भाग आए थे। कुछ हुआ कि नहीं? अच्छा अच्छा, तो रवि कह रहा था कुछ हुआ कि नहीं? हाँ, अच्छा, ये दोनों मिले हुए हैं। तो उस समय तो बच गए आप, फिर उस दिन जिस दिन आपकी चोट लगी है उस दिन रेप हुआ है? अच्छा, दोनों ने किया था, कोई और भी था?
वो दोनों थे और बाकी सब भाग गए थे।
अच्छा, बाकी सब भाग गए थे।
मम्मी को देख के।
अच्छा, मम्मी को देख के भाग गए थे। तो आप उस समय होश में थे?
थोड़ा सा होश था।
थोड़ा सा होश था। अच्छा अच्छा, तो रेप हुआ आपके साथ, उसके बाद क्या किया?
मेरी मम्मी ने मुंह में पानी डाला तो कुछ नहीं, क्या हुआ?
You know, there you are seeing it, Indira Jaising. You've got a situation where the autopsy report, the FSL report, according to the autopsy report, according to the police, claims no evidence of rape in the Hathras case, but the victim has given a statement. How do you now, which contradicts that? Now, the facts, according to the police, no semen presence, no broken hymen. Do they weaken the case? We have to remember that this evidence might have been lost in the last 15 days after which the autopsy was conducted. I want to understand, is this the problem in rape cases, that there will be little cooperation at times from the authorities who will perhaps come up with an entirely different version of events, sometimes to discredit it, as I said earlier, the girl's version?
Yes. See, one of the issues you've already identified, namely a 15-day period of delay by the time the autopsy was conducted and the event of rape. That's one major issue. But I would like to know whether you, the gentleman who just spoke, actually knows what is the definition of rape as amended in the year 2012, which doesn't really require penetration. Now, what you have in front of you is what we call in law a dying declaration. Here is a woman who says in her own words, I was raped. It's entitled to the highest possible evidentiary value, because the theory of the law is that a person who's about to die is not going to lie, okay? And you've seen the injuries on this woman's spine. You've seen what really did her to death. And she's the woman saying that I was raped. It's primary evidence from the mouth of the victim, not the vagina of the victim. And evidence which is delivered from a victim's mouth who is dead is entitled to the highest evidentiary, value in law. So that's the issue. But Rajdeep, more importantly, I'd like to know if what the gentleman is saying is the truth, why was the body spirited away by UP police. Why deny an opportunity of a second post-mortem? Does that not lead to at least a deep-rooted suspicion that there was something to hide? You know, Rajdeep, you must understand, a dead body, the state has no claim over a person's body, dead or alive, okay? By what authority of law was the dead body of this woman spirited away by the police? It's not enough that it was spirited away, it was then cremated. Why was the family...
I take your point completely, and that is where the suspicion of a cover-up comes up. The attempt by the authorities now to disregard the victim's dying statement adds to the note of suspicion. Pinky Anand joins me at the moment, another senior lawyer at the Supreme Court. Pinky Anand, you know, we are looking at just why we have such low conviction rates in rape cases. Is part of the problem the ability of the prosecutors to collect sufficient evidence? The evidence gathering system is poor. Or is there, in a way, some kind of an inherent bias against the woman who makes these statements?
Rajiv, I guess, you know, you're right. There is a very low conviction rate, and it continues to be low despite the kind of attention that has been, you know, focused on these issues. Definitely, one of them is the lack of the ability of the prosecution to gather evidence. It is also due to various other infirmities.
No, why is that?
Go into this entire.
No, why do you think the local police, for example, in a Hathras or you know in a Balrampur or an Azamgarh, is it just the poor policing, or is there something wrong inherently in the way these cases are approached by the prosecution?
It's both. It's both. It is at times the local police, it's at times the manner in which it is approached, is the manner in which it is pursued. But definitely we lack in our criminal justice system, not only in rape, but even otherwise. You have this dearth of proper investigation which is done or not done, which leads to poor conviction rates. Because what happens is at the outset, it's not later on that these stories really go on to becoming a low conviction rate. So there, Rajiv, I would say to you that basically we have to put into place systems that operate to the satisfaction of all concerned, so that where in appropriate cases you have an offence, you actually lead to a conviction. But also there's one other feature which happens in these cases, and I must share that with you. You also have a lack of pursuit. So therefore, in a number of cases, you have at the last stage, after the first one that I have mentioned to you, a lack of pursuit of these cases to its ultimate conclusion. So between a mix of these...
Why is that? Is that because the woman after a time is too afraid, or her family is too afraid to take on perhaps those who allegedly raped the girl? That there is a fear factor, there is a asymmetry between those in power.
Not fear factor alone. No, I would say that dearth of pursuit is principally due to the delay in the system, which leads to the lack of faith. So therefore, you don't want to pursue it beyond a point. Some part of it, very minuscule, maybe fear. I'm not saying, I'm not discounting that, but most of it is due to the time factor taken. Right. So I think there we need to push up our entire systems. And I do know that you're discussing fast tracks. I'm sorry I wasn't there the earlier part. No, so, you know, you do need to have not only justice delivered, but you need to have justice delivered within a time frame which gives succor to the victim.
You know, that is the problem, because these cases are taking far too long. But the reason I mentioned fear, and Indira Jaising, you could maybe respond to this, is the caste factor in Hathras, for example. The fact that this girl comes from a Valmiki community in a Thakur-dominated village, in a Pandit-dominated village, perhaps makes it now even more difficult for a family to take on those in power. The power equation in such cases.
Yes, which is why I found it so shocking that your previous speaker actually suggested that the rape allegation has been made only for whipping up caste hysteria. He seemed to suggest that. So yes, you know, Rajdeep, I'm reminded of Kerlanji in Maharashtra more than 7 years ago. And I'm asking myself the question,
yes, 14 years
ago. Has changed? What, if anything, has changed? There too, it was not. And you heard her say that there was a previous attempt at rape. You heard her say that in her dying declaration. So, you know, it's when it comes to the intersection of caste and gender, it's, you know, magnified manifestation of power equations, okay? You're already powerless because you're a woman, and on top of it, you belong to the scheduled caste. So you're fair game, so to say, you know.
Can I?
Rajdeep, you know, I have one request to make to you. Instead of just focusing your attention on figures, one rape is rape too many, okay? It's not a question of how many or how few. Look, when I saw the Madhya Pradesh DG come on record and say, I beat my wife, but that's not a crime. Today he's beating her, tomorrow he'll murder her. And God knows how many times she's raped. You know?
I take the larger point. Therefore, I'm going to ask both of you. I have limited time, a minute each, to just answer a simple question. You, Pinky, Anand, what is the solution? Where would you start to ensure that these conviction rates, which are abysmally low at 27%, at least rise to about 50%?
I'll be honest, I think, Rajdeep, first of all, conviction rates have risen to some extent, and I think some part of it is due to civil society action and participation in this entire process to push the game forward. But really speaking, the only manner in which to push up the conviction rates and to ensure that there is a reparation to victims is indeed to have an answerability to the system. So you have investigation, which is the primary feature, in order, the matter to go to trial and to have the whole matter end up into a complete prosecution versus, of course, the defense, because you are entitled. I must say, in the rule of law, you can't say you're not entitled to a defense. So you have to have the entire system operate to the satisfaction of delivering justice to the victim and to the entire process of law. Okay. I think that would really serve the purpose. But in a sense, Rajdeep, I would urge, and I think the government is, in fact, of course, already looking into it and bringing up, fast-track courts themselves have a purpose, because rape victims invariably, or sex victims, so to say, cannot push a system beyond a point, and in terms of time and the energy and whatever it takes to make that succeed. So really speaking, fast-track courts which were mandated and which we have brought up from 2000 onwards, I think if we can actually bring those forward, whether it's a Nirbhaya case or whatever, we can lead into a situation where in the appropriate cases, you will have a conviction.
So you need to make the fast-track courts, in a sense, genuinely fast-track. And that's a point that Indira Jaising also made earlier. You can't have fast-track courts in name. There need to be courts that operate within a fixed time limit and focus on the case with an effective prosecution and evidence gathering. Indira Jaising, I have 20 seconds, ma'am.
Yes, 2 seconds. You asked what will help. The first thing that I want is no political interference with the process of law.
Okay.
That will help a lot.
Touché. No political interference in the law. Touché is all one can say to that. That, of course, applies not just to rape cases, but several other cases as well. But Pinky, Anand and Indira Jaising, for sharing your wisdom and experience. I appreciate you joining us as we continue to track this story and continue to push for justice. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.